Welcome to my talk about the Biofield and Wellness. My name is Ernie Hubbard, and I am founder of Marin Biofield. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I'm learning concerning the biofield in general, the human biofield in particular, and how it relates to our wellness, growth, and development. This presentation is going to begin with an overview of background and context so that you have a better understanding of how the current research came into being. And then I'm going to describe for you what is my definition of the biofield, and in particular to talk about the role that crystals play in the biofield. I'm then going to describe for you the current and future research directions of Marin Biofield, followed by a discussion of how what we're learning about the biofield relates to our wellness, including what we can individually do to optimize our biofield. I guess my interest in the biofield started as a youth back in the 60s and 70s when I began farming. I guess you can call that a biofield. It was also at that time that I became very interested in metaphysics and in matters of the spirit. I later, during this period, became a student of biology and eventually became a scientist focusing on genetics. And ultimately that led me to a deep interest in the subject of optimal aging. And it was in 2017 that my interest became further focused in a study of the human biofield, drawing upon my previous exposure to ancient metaphysics and cosmologies. I combined that with a study of physics and biophysics, and during that period I developed a series of theoretical models about what the biofield is and how it might work. Due to the good fortune of meeting the people at Citrine in Larkspur, I was introduced to the Himalayan salt chamber at their facility and began in earlier 2023 a series of pilot studies at their facility in which I began testing some of the theories that I had been developing about the biofield. And that led me to present to you, as shown by the green pointer here, to present the results of my research to date and to tell you a little bit about what I have planned for the future in terms of continuing to study this fascinating area of research. So I'd like to begin by trying to answer a question that many of us have, and I just encountered it among many people. What is the biofield? And the simplest definition I can offer is that the biofield is really any field of energy that is in a biological system, whether that biological system is a single cell, an organism, or a community of organisms. And while the ancients knew much about the biofield, they were not at that time in a position to describe it scientifically, which has occurred over the subsequent millennia since their early and profound discoveries. The ancients knew that there was energy flowing through the human body and the mind and the heart, and today we have actually begun to identify some of these, what I call sub-biofields, and I'll be talking more about those later. But one of the profound realizations that I have had since I've been studying the biofield is that it is not a single field so much as a composite of many different energy fields that are active all the time within and around our bodies. And this slide is just designed to display that what was originally and in ancient times described as chi, for example, as that life force energy, has now become identified and quite well described in some cases as relating to energy fields in different organ systems of the body, and even describing how those organ systems interact for the whole body to experience a singular, what I'll call a field effect. So we know now that the biofield operates at many levels, and there is much evidence that it operates at the subatomic level, at the atomic level with various chemical and electrical and electromagnetic forces at work, at the level of cells, chromosomes, cell membranes, and beyond, as I mentioned, all the way up to including our organ systems, our entire organism, and the interaction between various organisms. And while we have learned much over the years, and while much of this learning has validated the wisdom of the ancients, there's still a lot we don't know about how our biofield interacts with external energy fields in the environment and throughout the cosmos. So these are the kinds of questions that form the foundation of my research at Marin Biofield. I am very interested in understanding how the range of external energy fields interact with our biofield and those sub-biofields to result in our wellness, in our consciousness, in our growth, in our development, and in our ability to unfold as individuals. This slide really just displays the incredible variety of different energy fields that influence our biofield on a daily basis. And these range from electromagnetic forces that pervade the atmosphere and the universe to the forces that are at work within and inside of atoms, various voltages and ionizations that occur in the atmosphere and in the world around us, including not only ionization from the environment, but static charges that can occur from many of the electronic devices that are in our world. There are a variety of other forces that have some role to play, including geomagnetic, gravitational, sound and vibrational forces, and the influence of both visible color and physical vibrations, such as not only those that are produced by sound, but those that can be produced through the movement of our own bodies, for example, such as in dance. Now, one thing that we can say with a certain degree of assurance is that the interactions of these external energy fields with our own human biofields will have various effects, positive or negative, and those effects can lead to various symptoms of health, wellness, and effects upon our consciousness. And on the left side of this slide, you can see that when there is a coherent or resonant interaction of the external energy fields with our biofields, that can lead to an enhancement or an amplification of our biofield. It can lead to resonance and harmony with our biofield, if you will. While on the other hand, and this is on the right side of the screen, you can see that various discordances between external energy fields and even discordances within the subfields within our own bodies and minds can lead to complications, interferences, disruptions in our biofield, and these can cascade through our body's biochemistry and our neurology and throughout every system in our body to lead to symptoms of unwellness. And finally, I would just like to mention that the external fields and the human biofield both behave as transceivers, which means that they both transmit and receive energy and information. And so one of the great areas of interest in my research, and it will take some time, I think, for me to gain clarity about this, but it is to gain a better understanding of how our biofields can both receive and transmit information both at the level of our biology and also at the level of our consciousness, our emotions, and our spiritual lives. So to summarize what I know about the biofield, I know I say here that to summarize what we know, but the biofield appears to be comprised of many sub-biofields. It involves very complex interactions with an ever-changing external energy environment. And much of it may now be observed and measured and therefore analyzed. So I feel very fortunate to be working on this project at a time when I have access to both the ancient wisdom and much of the modern science that's available to let me probe more deeply into a better understanding of the biofield. And then finally, I would just add that we now know that the biofield can be correlated with a number of different symptoms, if you will, and health conditions ranging from anxiety and stress to inflammation, energy, immunological. The host of symptoms is almost limitless, but it is hard for me to observe a symptom of wellness that is not potentially, in some respect, influenced and potentially helped by the biofield. I'd like now to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about what crystals have to do with the biofield. And again, I hearken back, am very thankful to my study of both quantum mechanics and to my meeting of the people at Citrine, because that enhanced my interest in the entire subject of crystals. Just a couple of words about crystals in general, just so we're all on the same page about it. Crystals are generally defined as made of matter that is either in a solid or a semi-solid state. So they're generally not considered as liquids or gases. And one of the reasons is that crystals are defined by having repeating atomic or molecular units. And these are atoms or molecules that occur in either very regular periodic arrays or in what are called aperiodic arrays. And they are highly relevant to the biofield, which I hope to show you in the next few slides. Crystals in certain forms can be very responsive to a variety of forms of energy, waveforms, energy fields, and physical vibrations. And there's a wonderful connection between these repeating solid or semi-solid substances and the biofield and its response to various energy forms. And as it turns out, there are many forms of crystals in nature. Many of us are familiar with mineral crystals, such as quartz or citrine or amethyst. Salt forms crystals, whether it's regular sodium chloride or Himalayan salt, such as is in the citrine salt sanctuary. And then many people don't realize this, but our bodies are made up of many substances that are really organic crystals. Many of them are in a semi-solid state, and they are carbon-based because we are biologically based. And examples of them include our DNA, our RNA, chromosomes, our cell membranes, even our muscles and our skin are crystalline in nature, and much of their behavior can be described through the use of a crystalline model of behavior, if you will. Crystals are also self-organizing, which I find fascinating. And this slide shows you what I believe are the largest natural crystals on the planet Earth. And this is from a cave in Mexico. And these are pure quartz crystals. And you can see the people in their orange suits there crawling around these crystals, some of which are over 30 feet in length and 6 feet in diameter. And this is a video of a crystal under the electron microscope actually in formation at the molecular level. And the slide in the lower right is an example of crystals that form from all of the minerals that are in the ocean. And you can see a very complex and yet quite regular array of the minerals and the metals that are in those crystals. Notably, water and our nucleic acids are two of the many molecular forms in biological systems that exhibit crystal-like properties. And of course, these both play key roles in our health and our wellness, and I'll be speaking more about this later. One of the important things to know about crystals is that they can be formed by a variety of different atomic, molecular, and energetic bonds. Covalent bonding being the strongest, and that's the form of bonding that occurs in solid crystals such as quartz. Ionic bonding is a weaker form of bonding, and it is prevalent in salt crystals, and it's also very important in the transmission of electricity and electromagnetic energy. And then finally, hydrogen bonding, which is what is formed in the DNA molecule and in water structures, is the weakest of all of them and a very subtle form of bonding. And depending upon the bonding nature and the molecules and atoms involved in a crystal, they can transmit and receive both energy and information. And this slide is designed to illustrate the behavioral properties of crystals under certain conditions. For example, in the upper left-hand corner, this is showing what a quartz crystal looks like under the electron microscope when it is being impinged upon by electrical charges. And it actually changes shape depending upon the electrical information traveling through the crystal. And over in the upper right corner is an actual crystal that's embedded in a vacuum tube of a radio. And that's why radios need crystals, because the crystals interact with both the electrical signals, and once they've received that electrical signal, they can translate that and turn it into a sound that we can hear in the radio or on our iPhones, for example. Below, you can see in the left-hand side the semiconductor properties of crystals. They can actually filter and direct certain types of energy depending upon their structure. And then in the lower right-hand corner is an example of a crystalline matrix, which can exchange information and energy in a variety of different dimensions. And examples of biocrystals include not only our DNA and our RNA and our cell membranes, but also skin, muscle, even our bones and our connective tissue and our fascia have crystalline-like properties. So I think it's fair to say that crystals, in one form or another, are involved in virtually all of the bioenergetic processes that occur in our world and in our lives. They affect everything from energy and conductivity to filtration of information and energy. They can, again, transmit and receive energy. They can reflect energy. They can refract it. They can diffract it. They can even polarize energy and focus it. So they're really quite amazing structures in nature. It was based upon my study of crystals, and in particular the study of the Himalayan salt crystals, that led me to conduct the research that I've been doing at the Citrine Salt Sanctuary. And now I'd like to tell you a little bit about the research that I've done so far in the Salt Sanctuary. I've really conducted 3 studies since May of this year at the Salt Sanctuary, and the first was to measure the energy in the field inside of the room and to optimize it for use in studying the human biofield. I then conducted a first study in which I evaluated the effects of the Citrine Salt Sanctuary on the human biofield, and I have most recently begun the initial development of a mapping project to develop an integrative map of the human biofield. So just a few words about the research in the Himalayan Salt Sanctuary at Citrine. The Himalayan salt that comprises the Salt Sanctuary at Citrine is from a mine in Pakistan the Kura salt mine, which is the largest salt mine in the world as far as I know. And these bricks of Himalayan salt have been mined from salt that was formed from an ancient sea approximately 600 million years ago. And to my knowledge, it's the largest deposit of this particular type of salt. It's very rich in minerals, and as you'll come to see, it's very highly energetically active. So I've been studying Himalayan rock salt bricks for quite some time now, and these slides just simply illustrate some of the research that I've done to determine whether it is electronically, electromagnetically, and energetically active, to study some of its semiconducting and polarizing properties, to look at it form under the microscope from a drop of Himalayan salt water, and to observe that Himalayan salt crystals typically form perfect pyramids. And this pyramidal geometry has a number of interesting energetic attributes to it, not the least of which I'm sure has to do with the proportions of Himalayan salt crystals conform to the golden mean. So a few words about the energy field testing that I've done in the Citrine Salt Sanctuary. Basically, when I arrived at the salt sanctuary, I realized that there was a lot of energy in the field inside the room that was from the outside. And so I began to measure the room, of course, and then to shield those sources of outside energy so that I could minimize a lot of what was coming into the room that might have been artificial, man-made, and unnatural. So I shielded the electrical outlets and the various devices in the room. I took pre and post readings to make sure that the electromagnetic and other ionized fields of energy were reduced. And then finally, I drove a copper pipe down through the concrete foundation in the room into the earth and attached that copper pipe to the walls of the salt room so that the room itself is now literally grounded to the earth. In addition to that, I have been working to make sure that we have very good temperature, light, and sound control in the room. And so now it became possible for me to invite people into the room to study their biofields, to ground them to the room, and to know that the space in which I was testing them was, while energetically active, it was free of a lot of the deleterious and harmful artificial energy fields that were previously in the room. This slide just shows a summary of what the status of the room was when I arrived and how it has now been what I call cleaned energetic future research. And to make sure that this was so, I actually went out to a couple of natural environments nearby here in Marin, including Rodeo Beach and Madrone Canyon at the base of Mount Tamalpais, and I took energy readings in both of these environments, and I compared them with the readings that I had in the Himalayan salt room and found that they are virtually identical. So bringing someone into the Himalayan salt room is scientifically equivalent from an energy standpoint to bringing them into a very natural environment. And as it currently stands, the Himalayan salt room now is both grounded, and it also has the unique properties of the Himalayan salt bricks of reflecting quite a bit of the energy that hits the outsides of the bricks, but it also filters, diffracts, and polarizes energy coming into the room. And it's very complex in the way that it handles that energy, and in many respects it's very similar to our own bodies, which are very complex in terms of how they handle energy that is passing through it. And so I've done my best to optimize the room for the testing in the human biofield, and to date I have found that it is an extremely positive environment, if you will, for doing detailed and very subtle measurements of the human biofield. The first study that I did with humans in the biofield was to examine the effect of non-salt room energy fields on the human biofield compared with how the same people responded when they were in the citrine salt sanctuary. And this involved 11 women ranging from 34 to 78 years old, many of whom are highly intuitive individuals. Many of them are practitioners of various wellness modalities themselves. And I conducted a series of biofield tests on these 11 women, both inside and outside of the citrine salt sanctuary. And these involved testing their entire biofields, the whole body biofield. I looked at the heart and the autonomic nervous system biofield, the brain biofield, and a couple of different aspects of their cellular biofields, both in and out of the salt room. And this slide shows you some of the tests that I did on the brain biofield, the heart and nervous system, and the whole body. This graph shows you in very general terms what the cellular biofield looked like in these 11 women, both when they were tested outside the room and then inside. And the blue bars are their cellular biofield energy, the total energy of their cellular biofields when they were outside the salt room, and the gold bars show you what those energies were inside the salt room. And this was after 15 minutes of grounding and meditation in the salt room. Some of the other study findings that I have obtained from this first project, and much of this is reporting still in progress, and I'll be happy to share it with you if you're interested once I've written it up. But the whole body voltage of the individuals in general was significantly reduced when they were in the salt sanctuary, ranging from 50 plus millivolts when they were outside the salt room to, in many cases, less than 10 millivolts, which is getting very close to what it is like when you're in pure seawater, and very similar to the voltages of many sea creatures that I've measured. I measured the heart biofield, and I showed that there was a significant increase in the coherence of the autonomic nervous system and the heart biofield in the presence of the citrine salt sanctuary after that 15 minutes of grounding and meditation. There was a much more rapid, quote, drop in to a deep meditative state in the salt sanctuary and in the presence of being grounded in the salt room. And then finally, I asked the participants to offer me any anecdotal accounts of their experience in the salt room. And all but maybe one of these, which was kind of a neutral anecdote, but all of the others were very positive, and some were quite striking, identifying certain areas of their body or their own fields that they were being drawn to. In one case, a woman mentioned that she felt she was in the presence of a sentient being when she was in the room, all of which I find quite intriguing. Current research now is really directed toward developing an integrated model and map of the human biofield. And the focus of my research right now, at least as it relates to electromagnetic energy fields, is in what I call the high radio wave and infrared range, up through and including the low visible light range. And I am developing a number of instruments and tests to evaluate what is happening in the human biofield within that range of electromagnetic frequencies. And that has led me to start doing a series of infrared EMF and thermal scans of the whole body, and also certain regions of the body. And this short video just shows you one of the scans that I did of a woman as she was rotating her head, and my ability to gain the beginnings of a three-dimensional look inside and beyond the skin into the biofields that are operating within her body and her brain and through the various chakra regions. I'm also fascinated with a study of the meridians in general and also of the hands. And so I'm initiating a study of looking at biofield energetics of these regions. And finally, just a list of some of the other areas that are in development and subjects that pertain to my future research, including studying the emission of biophotons from various regions of our bodies, the importance of what I call biopiezoelectric fields, and again we get back to the biocrystalline nature of our biomolecules and how they can generate both electric fields and electromagnetic fields. I mentioned chakras earlier. I'm really looking to develop a way to map the energy fields of the chakra regions in a variety of other areas of interest, including the study of quantum angular momentum as it might influence our biofields, the impact of sound and other physical vibrations, working with a gentleman who is very knowledgeable about tensegrity, if you're familiar with that term, and how it relates to the generation of forces and energy fields in the body. I'm also very interested in the effect of astrology and time and gravitational fields upon the biofield, the interaction of various humans as their biofields begin to encounter each other, which ties into my study of the biofield as a transceiver, and then finally to a broader study of the biofield and consciousness in all of its levels. So I'd like to change the subject a little bit now and move on to how all of this research might relate to human wellness. And some of the applications of the biofield mapping and research that I'm doing pertain to its use as a diagnostic tool to develop a biofield signature of someone so that we can identify anomalies in their signature compared with a broader population, or to monitor changes in their biofield map over time and to correlate that with various symptoms of wellness or unwellness. I believe that the biofield mapping work has many applications in a variety of modalities as a therapeutic tool, and I'll be speaking more about that in a minute. But also, again, the use of the biofield as a way to both transmit and receive information from ourselves, from our past, from others, and perhaps even from domains of the cosmos that we are not yet even aware of. Some of the modalities that I believe may employ the biofield with benefit include its use in meditation, various forms of meditation and somatic energy work. People who work in the field of crystal therapies may find this very useful. For a variety of reasons, I think the biofield can be a very powerful tool in addressing issues of stress and anxiety, including the use of it as a biofeedback tool, and the subjects of guided imagery, hypnotherapy, counseling, various counseling readings and different types of energetic assessments, various somatic therapies such as massage or EMDR and acupuncture. Cognitive and intuitive therapies are another area. And finally, the use of the biofield in diagnostics, in enhancement of our creativity and our inspiration, and including the use of it in halotherapy, which is to enhance the ionic field in the environment so that it is more effectively interacting with our biofield for addressing issues such as asthma or allergies. Well, finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we can do about our biofields. And these are just some ideas that I had about how we, in our everyday lives, can do things to enhance the probability that our biofields are in their natural state and are optimally serving us and others and the world. And the first of these is just to spend as much time as possible in the presence of natural energy fields and not artificial energy fields. And I know this is very obvious, but I think it still is worth noting because oftentimes in our busy lives we really don't understand or we don't remember how much we're being assaulted and bombarded by artificial energy fields. And because sometimes the effects of those fields are rather subtle, in a prolonged sense, they can have profound effects upon our wellness. And this includes both your home and your workplace and everything from how you organize your space to what might be done to minimize the effects of electromagnetic frequencies, electrical fields, and various frequencies of light and different sound vibrations. With respect to the body, our own bodies and human nutrition, the three things in addition to obviously taking good care of oneself are the importance of trace minerals from the ocean in our diet. And that is because they are not prevalent in our normal food supply anymore. They've been removed from the topsoils of our farming soils and generally, I believe, need to be supplemented. Please see me and contact me if you'd like to learn more about that. Earthing and grounding the body on a regular basis is very important. You may remember I mentioned about the voltages, how they were reduced when I measured people in the salt sanctuary, and that was in large part because the bodies, their bodies were grounded to the salt bricks, which were grounded to the earth. And there are a variety of very simple and inexpensive ways that you can ground yourself. Even 30 minutes a day is very important. And then finally, physical movement. And here I'm not just talking about exercise, I'm talking about vibrational movement, whether it's dance or various massage therapies or other ways to vibrate those biocrystals in your body so that they are optimally generating the kinds of energy and energy fields that your body needs to respond positively. With respect to the mind and the heart and the central nervous system, it's very important to do what you can to reduce stress in your life. And grounding can have a profound effect upon stress reduction, as of course does optimizing your sleep life, evaluating your sleep hygiene as you're preparing to go into sleep, as you're preparing to rise in the morning and enter a state of consciousness. Be aware of the impact of various locations, physical locations, and even people on your biofield. It may not be readily apparent at the time, but it's often the case that the energy being emitted from other locations and other people and other organisms can have a profound effect upon your own biofield. And then finally, I would encourage you, if you're interested, to consider mapping your biofield, possibly identifying areas where you are seeing correlations between, let's just say, stress or pain and your biofield map. And so this would give you an opportunity to actually use the biofield map to monitor changes over time and to further optimize your own unique biofield signature. So I hope you've found this to be an informative video. And if you have any questions, please contact me at erniehubbard.com or at my email, erniehubbard@yahoo.com. Or feel free to give me a call at 415-215-8933. And I'd love to chat with you and meet with you and talk with you about how your biofield can be optimized and how this research that I'm doing might make some small contribution to your overall wellness. Thanks again. Bye-bye.